Grace Meng just confronted Attorney General Bondi with a question that should terrify every family who's lost someone to hate crimes. Bondi's Justice Department quietly eliminated 3 major hate crime prevention programs, including one created after 6 Asian women were murdered in Atlanta. What happened next exposed how unprepared Trump's DOJ really is to protect vulnerable communities.
Madam Attorney General, I wanted to ask about a topic that's of great importance to many Americans and especially my constituents, which is about hate crimes. I'm really troubled that your budget proposes to end the grant programs that may help prevent some of these hate crimes. As you may know, I was the author of one of these programs, the Community-Based Approaches to Advancing Justice program, which was created in fiscal year 2022. This program supported local groups working to increase hate crimes reporting, give community members resources in languages other than English, and to improve relationships between local law enforcement and the community. It was a direct response to the rise in hate crimes targeting Asian Americans during the COVID-19 pandemic. You may recall in March 2021, 6 women of Asian descent were tragically murdered in Atlanta, Georgia. My Hate Crimes Act passed through Congress in May of that year with bipartisan support, including from several of my colleagues on the other side of the dais. For years, I've been hearing from constituents about how scared they felt and have been hearing from members of these communities as well as experts who've told me that one of the best ways to combat hate in this country is to fund prevention programs. So not just prosecution, but also prevention. I have a letter here that hate crime survivors and family members wrote to you in May, expressing their strongest concerns about the termination of these grants. Signed by people like family members of Emmett Till, James Byrd Jr., Matthew Shepard, and survivors of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the hearing record this letter from these survivors and family members to Attorney General Bondi regarding the termination of hate crimes related grant programs.
Without objection.
Oh, yes, without objection.
Thank you, Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, I absolutely share your support for our law enforcement and for the prosecution of hate crimes in a just way, but we must combat all forms of hate on all fronts, bringing together law enforcement and community leaders and members of the public. And these grant programs have helped many communities do exactly this. So I just wanted to ask and hear from you why there is a proposal to eliminate the 3 largest sources of DOJ funding for hate crime prevention programs.
Yeah, and Ranking Member, can you list those 3 for me again? And I'm sorry, I have not received your letter yet, but I would welcome working with you on any issue regarding hate crimes in the Asian American community, in any community. I welcome working with you on that.
Okay, yeah, I would love to, and this letter was sent May 15th, and we'll make sure that you and your team have received it. So the programs, one of them, for example, is named the Community-Based Approaches to Advancing Justice. 3 programs have been cut, and one of these programs literally help support our law enforcement departments locally, like our NYPD, to train and respond to hate crimes.
Let me see. So we have 5,800 grants, Chairman, that come, Ranking Member, excuse me, that come through my office. 365 have been cut so far. That's approximately 6%. What I will tell you is we have turned back on 13 of those so far because people have reached out to me. If you want to reach out and talk to me directly, I will give you my cell phone. I would love to sit down with you and see if we can work that out. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with those 3 directly. But again, we will, if you have on either side of the aisle any grants that you believe should be back on, I would love to meet with you and work with you on that. We're doing that on a case-by-case basis, and law enforcement is my top priority, especially hate crimes. violence against women, everything I've done my entire career as a prosecutor. I think we have a former prosecutor in the room too. And I look forward to working with you on those and seeing what we can do to help you.
Great, we'd love to work together, and we will flag all the programs that have been impacted, including those that directly support our local law enforcement like NYPD. And just to be more specific, the 3 programs mentioned are community-based approaches, Jabara Hire, No Hate, and Shepherd Bird, No Hate Shepherd Bird. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez?
What
Madam
Congresswoman
Attorney
Grace
General, I
Meng
wanted
did
to
in
ask
that
about a
hearing
topic
wasn't
that's
just
of great
questioning.
importance
It was a
to many
masterclass in
Americans
exposing
and
how quickly
especially my
institutional
constituents, which is
protections can
about hate
disappear when
crimes.
political
I'm
priorities shift.
really
Her
troubled that
methodical
your
approach
budget
revealed
proposes
3
to end the
critical
grant programs
vulnerabilities
that
in
may
how America
help
handles
prevent
hate
some of
crime
these hate
prevention,
crimes.
each more
As you may
disturbing
know,
than
I
the
was the
last.
author of one of
Start
these
with the
programs,
math.
the community-based
Bondi admitted that
approaches to advancing
365
justice
grant
program,
programs
which
have
was
been
created in
eliminated,
fiscal
roughly
year
6% of all
2022.
Justice
This
Department
program
grants.
supported
That's
local
not
groups
surgical
working to
budget
increase
cutting.
hate crimes
That's
reporting,
systematic
give
dismantling.
community
When Meng
members
pressed for
resources
specifics about
in
the 3
languages
largest
other
hate
than
crime
English,
prevention
and to
programs,
improve relationships
Bondi's
between
response
local
was
law
telling. She
enforcement
couldn't
and the
name them,
community.
hadn't received the
It
letter
was
from
a direct
survivors'
response
families,
to the
and
rise in
seemed
hate
genuinely
crimes
unaware
targeting
of what
Asian
her own department
Americans
had cut.
during the COVID-19
This isn't administrative
pandemic.
incompetence.
You may
It's
recall in March
institutional amnesia.
2021,
The
6 women of
community-based
Asian
approaches
descent
to
were
advancing
tragically
justice
murdered in
program that
Atlanta,
Meng authored
Georgia.
emerged
My
directly
Hate
from the
Crimes
Atlanta
Act
spa
passed through
shootings that
Congress
killed
in
6
May of that
Asian
year
women
with
in March.
bipartisan
The Jabara
support,
Hire No
including
Hate
from
Act
several
and
of my
Matthew Shepard
colleagues on the other
programs
side of the
represent
dais.
decades of advocacy
For
by
years, I've been
families who
hearing from
lost loved
constituents
ones to
about how
targeted
scared they
violence.
felt, and have been
These weren't
hearing
obscure
from members
bureaucratic
of these
initiatives. They
communities
were
as well as
legislative
experts
responses to
who've told
national
me that one
tragedies.
of the best
Bondi's
ways
offer to
to
restore
combat
programs
hate
on a
in this country
case-by-case
is to
basis,
fund
if
prevention
Congress reaches out
programs. So not
personally,
just
reveals how
prosecution,
protection
but
from
also
hate crimes has
prevention.
become
I have a
transactional.
letter here
Instead
that
of
hate crime
systematic
survivors
safeguards, we
and
now have a
family
system
members wrote
where
to you
vulnerable
in May,
communities must lobby
expressing their
individually for
strongest
basic
concerns about the
protections.
termination
That's
of
not
these
governance,
grants.
it's
Signed
political
by
favor
people
trading.
like family
The
members
deeper
of
issue
Emmett
is
Till,
prevention versus
James Byrd
prosecution.
Jr., Matthew
Meng
Shepard, and
emphasized that
survivors
these
of the
programs
Pittsburgh
didn't just
synagogue
fund
shooting.
prosecution after
I asked
crimes
unanimous
occurred.
consent to
They
enter
funded
into
community
the
education,
hearing record this letter from
multilingual
these survivors
resources,
and family
and
members
law
to
enforcement
Attorney General
training to prevent
Bondi,
hate crimes from
regarding the
happening. When you
termination of hate
eliminate prevention
crimes-related
funding,
grant
you're
programs.
essentially deciding that society will only respond to hate crimes after someone gets hurt or killed. Consider what that means practically. Without community-based prevention programs,
Thank you, Chairman.
local organizations
Attorney
can't
General
provide
Bondi, I
resources in
absolutely
languages
share
other
your
than
support
English.
for our law
Police
enforcement
departments
and for the
lose training on how to
prosecution
recognize and
of hate
respond to
crimes in a
bias
just
incidents
way,
before they
but we must
escalate.
combat all
Community
forms of
trust
hate
building
on all
initiatives
fronts,
disappear,
bringing together
making
law
people less
enforcement and
likely to
community
report
leaders
threats or
and members of
suspicious
the public.
activity.
And
The
these
letter
grant
Meng
programs
referenced,
have helped
signed
many
by families of
communities
Emmett Till,
do
James
exactly
Byrd
this.
Jr., and Matthew
So
Shepard,
I just wanted to
along with
ask and
Pittsburgh
hear from you
synagogue
why
shooting
there is
survivors,
a proposal
represents
to
something
eliminate the
profound,
3
a
largest
coalition
sources
of
of
people
DOJ
who've
funding
paid the
for hate
ultimate
crime
price for
prevention
America's
programs.
failure to take hate
Yeah,
seriously.
and
When
Ranking
Bondi
Member, can
admitted
you
she
list
hadn't
those 3
received
for
their
me
letter,
again? And
she
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
just
I have
showing
not
poor
received your
staff
letter
work.
yet, but
She was
I
demonstrating
would
that the voices
welcome
of victims'
working
families
with
don't
you
register
on
in
any
current
issue
Justice
regarding
Department
hate
priorities.
crimes
Bondi's
in the
promise to
Asian
give Meng
American
her
community,
personal
in
cell
any
phone number
community.
sounds
I welcome
accommodating,
working with you on
but it
that.
actually
Yeah,
highlights
I would
the
love
problem.
to, and this
Hate crime
letter
prevention
was sent May
shouldn't depend
15th,
on
and we'll make
personal
sure that you and your
relationships or
team
individual
have
advocacy.
received it.
It should be
So the
institutionalized,
programs,
systematic,
one of
and
them, for
protected from
example,
political wins.
is named
The timing of these
the
cuts is
community-based
particularly
approaches to
revealing.
advancing justice.
They're
3
happening as
programs
hate crime
have
statistics
been cut,
continue
and one
climbing
of these
nationwide.
programs literally
FBI
help
data shows
support
hate
our law
crimes reached a
enforcement
12-year
departments
high,
locally, like our
with attacks on
NYPD, to
Asian
train and
Americans
respond to
increasing
hate
by
crimes.
339% in major cities during the pandemic. Yet the response from Justice
We have
Department leadership is
5,800
to eliminate the
grants,
very
Chairman,
programs
that come,
designed to
Ranking
address
Member,
this
excuse me,
crisis.
that come through
That's not
my
budget
office.
responsibility.
365
It's willful
have been
blindness
cut
to
so far. That's
documented
approximately
threats.
6%.
There's also a
What I
procedural
will
issue
tell
that
you
Meng's
is
questioning
we have turned back
exposed.
on 13 of
When
those so
Bondi
far
said
because
she
people
turned
have
back
reached
on
out to
13
me.
programs
If you want to
after
reach
people
out and
reached
talk
out,
to me
she
directly, I'll give
revealed
you
that
my cell
restoration
phone. I would love to
decisions are
sit
being
down with
made
you
through informal
and
channels
see
rather
if
than
we can
systematic
work that
review.
out. I'm
This
sorry, I'm
ad
not
hoc
familiar
approach means
with
that
those
communities with
directly.
better
But
political
again,
connections
we
get their
will, if you
programs
have on
restored
either
while
side of
others
the
remain
aisle,
cut.
any
That's
grants that
exactly
you
how civil
believe
rights
should be
protections erode.
back on,
Not
I
through
would
dramatic
love to meet with
announcements,
you
but
and
through
work
quiet
with you on
administrative
that. We're doing
decisions
that
that
on a
favor some
case-by-case
communities over
basis.
others. What
And
this
law
hearing really
enforcement is my
exposed
top
is how
priority,
quickly
especially
decades
hate
of
crimes,
progress can be
violence
reversed
against
when new
women.
leadership views civil
Everything I've
rights
done my entire
protections
career
as
as a
optional
prosecutor. I think
rather
we have
than
a former
essential.
prosecutor in
The
the room
families
too.
who wrote that
And,
letter
and
understand
I look
something
forward
that
to working
apparently
with you
escapes
on this
current
and seeing
Justice
what we can do
Department
to help you.
leadership.
Great, we'd love to work
Prevention
together, and we
programs
will
aren't
flag
just
all the
policy
programs that have been
preferences.
impacted,
They're the
including
difference
those
between
that
communities that
directly
feel safe
support
and
our local
communities
law
that live in
enforcement, like
fear.
NYPD.
The broader
And just to
implication is
be
chilling.
more specific, the
When
three
hate crime
programs
prevention
mentioned
becomes
are
politically
community-based
negotiable,
approaches,
every
Jabara
vulnerable
Hire, No
community
Hate,
becomes a
and
potential
Shepherd
target.
Bird. No Hate, Shepherd Bird. Thank
LGBTQT
you so
centers
much.
lose safety
Thank you.
training.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Synagogues can't afford
Madam
security
Attorney General, I wanted
upgrades.
to ask about a
Mosques
topic that's
lose
of great
community liaison
importance to
programs.
many
Asian American
Americans, and
businesses lose
especially my
bias
constituents,
incident
which is
reporting
about hate
systems.
crimes.
Each cut creates a
I'm
gap
really
where hatred
troubled
can
that your
flourish
budget
unchecked.
proposes to
If you
end the
want to
grant programs
understand
that
what's
may
at stake,
help prevent
don't
some
focus
of
on the
these hate
budget
crimes.
numbers.
As you may
Focus on
know,
the
I was
human
the author
cost
of
when
one of these
prevention
programs, the
disappears and
community-based
prosecution becomes
approaches
the only
to
response
advancing
to
justice
hatred in
program,
America.